Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Soul Tribe Podcast, everybody. It is a solo episode today, and it's me, Lorena, so I hope you guys enjoy it. And we're going to be talking all about birth and delivery, because this is something that came to me the other day with a video I saw on YouTube, and it really woke up a lot of things on and kind of like an astrology level. But I started to think about how our birth and our delivery can really impact our life and our experience here, and how it can affect the way that we move about our life and how we hold maybe ourselves back or how we fear certain things. And I started to get all these messages, so I felt that I needed to kind of explain what came through. And I have my Akashic Records open now as well, so I'll definitely be channeling information through that avenue as well. So I think we need to just really give this whole idea of the way we've come into this world more weight or importance. Like what happened during the delivery even, that can come up in like rebirthing sessions, and also during your Akashic Records reading, that could happen. I haven't personally, at least not many times that has come up, but I think if you have that information, it can really help expand your knowledge and understand what you're going through today, probably in a very kind of deep way. So just to understand how the delivery was. So what was your mom feeling? What was happening? Was she scared? What was she feeling? And how did it all come about? Was she induced? Was it something natural? Was it a completely natural, harmonious experience? Or was it maybe your mom in the ER, or it was, a C-section? All of that stuff really impacts our experience, because you have to think and understand, they're saying that it's etched and it's completely impregnated into our cellular memory, and it determines so many things about us. A lot of that is already in our astrology natal chart. A lot of it's already as part of our story, but I think if we can understand it, we can understand ourselves better, and then that we can kind of let things go, or understand that there's certain fears that there's nothing that we need to worry about. We can let it go and start to live our life and push past those fears and those negative thoughts, right? So the experience we have with our birth and our delivery many times can bring about negative thoughts or fears, maybe fear of starting something or doing something, or negative thoughts or certain patterns of thinking. Or maybe sometimes we cling on to certain people in our life, like our mom, our family, or our partner, or, a job, that too. So that's all things to think about. Or too much energy. Like, let's say you have too much impulsive energy, like you just want to do stuff and just like, you don't think about things and you just like throw yourself into ideas, or maybe you overthink things like that. Those are all part of who, or maybe our personality or what we've come to experience in this life. But a lot of that, if we look back, we can start to connect the dots and understand that our birth and the process has a lot to do with how we feel today. So information can be found completely and seen in the natal chart. So if you were to get a natal chart reading, which I would highly recommend, and it's really opened my eyes to so many things and understanding myself more, and you can see it there in your natal chart. It comes up in different ways, and you can get a completely personalized way of seeing your experience in like a very visual way. And if you have a good reader, or a good astrologer, they can totally connect the dots and help you understand yourself so much better. Like we've mentioned and we've had on the podcast before, we love Patricia. So I'll link her information on the show notes, because I can hands down, like I 100% recommend her. She's amazing. And she does humanistic astrology, which really looks at all these things. And I think if you're on this path of really growing and understanding yourself, this is such a great way to go. So this is like programming, this is not only the programming, but we can also look at this and use our free will to deprogram or kind of bring down this programming we had and put in new ideas, new ways of thinking, get rid of fear, to start living in another way and to start experiencing life in another way and to connect with ourselves, our soul, and with this human experience in a completely different and new energy. I think that if we can understand that, we can let it go. So we have to also think that the birth or our birth, be it whoever's birth it is our very, very first experience here on earth. It is the first thing that we're going to happen. It's the first thing that's going to happen to us when we come into this life. So how could it not impact us? How could it not have this immense, kind of, I want to say sometimes it could be a burden, but a lot of times it could be a way of understanding ourselves, right? So this birth process, it's something that I think if we can get information on, sometimes, we might not be able to get that information. A lot of times, like I said, maybe you need to get a natal chart so you can understand it. Otherwise, I would encourage you guys to talk to your mom, talk to your mom or your dad, even if he was there present and could have a different kind of perspective on the situation. And ask them, what was it like? Were you scared? Were you calm? What happened? How did it all go about? Not only the actual birth process, maybe even during the time she was pregnant, all that can affect the baby. And I think this is stuff that you can also see in family constellations, how the way our parents, or especially our mother, because we're very connected to our mother when we're coming into this life, we're one. We're one with our mom. So anything she's experiencing, we're experiencing it. So she's having these negative feelings towards the pregnancy, if she's not feeling well, if she's scared of what's going to come, all that, the baby or the fetus absorbs all of that. And all of that is something that somehow is going to be incorporated into the cellular memory, and you're going to somehow live that out in this life some way, unless you're able to kind of connect with it and let it out, which is the reason I'm doing this episode, because I think it's important. But we need to think that as our first experience, it does have an impact on us, and it does really affect how we experience life today. I think if you could just wrap your head around that, that's already step one. And birth is, in many ways, your life, your first day of life, or your first minutes, your first moments, but it's also a separation, a death of you separating from your mom, who you were one with. So it's very, very traumatic for the baby in many ways, where the separation from the mother can be really, really difficult and can be very painful. So the delivery process, the pregnancy and all that can also have an impact on how you, as a little baby being born into this crazy world, how you're going to experience that. So if your mom was already fearing the experience, you're going to absorb that. Maybe you're going to fear when you come out into this world, right? But understand, this is kind of what's coming through the Akashic Records, understand that it's a complete separation. You're one, you're protected, you're taken care of. You don't have to think about anything when you're in the womb. And as soon as you're born, there's a separation, there's a death with that birth. And that's really painful, and that's kind of hard to think of it that way, because, when we have a baby, or if our friends have a baby, you're like, wow, it's so beautiful, it's amazing. But we need to think of it in terms of this soul coming into this life who was one with the mom, right? So the birthing process and being inside of the uterus is so different from the baby coming out into this world, right? This baby's connected to the mother in every single way, from their thoughts to the feelings. If the mom doesn't feel well, the baby doesn't feel. If the baby doesn't feel well, the mom doesn't feel well. And that how could anything that the mother is going through not affect the fetus, right? So you have to think all that's in the cellular memory. You're born, you're bringing in that programming with you, and that can have a huge impact on how you're going to experience your life. And the Akashic Records now want to kind of, what's coming through right now is this idea of, we have to just reprogram that, because that's not necessarily ours. And we have to be able to separate. And that's why I love family constellations too. Akashic Records as well can kind of go through some of this if you ask the right questions. But family constellations can really put things into their place and kind of say, okay, so this is what your mom was feeling, and now you're feeling this way. This doesn't belong to you. And you can even do that through hypnosis, through other things. And as long as you get someone that can guide you through that, that could be super powerful. And it could really be liberating for a lot of people, I think. So like I was saying, the baby is connected to the mom in the uterus. And when we're born, there's so many things that are so foreign to us, and we have to kind of adapt to this with this separation that we're experiencing, and that many times can be so scary. So also the relationship once you come out is super important, and I see that day in and day out in readings where, your childhood and the way that your experience with your mom and your dad really can affect you and what you're experiencing today. So it all has an impact. So coming into this world, you have to realize it is a separation, and that this little baby is its own being now. It's this crazy kind of separation that also is giving life to something new, to a new kind of, obviously new soul, but also to new experiences, a separation in how am I going to think? How am I going to experience life? So that's why it's important not to hold on to those things, and understand that if your mom did have a crazy experience with her delivery, with her pregnancy, to wrap your head around it, to understand it, to maybe sit with her and talk about it, because it can help you liberate that and say, oh, this isn't what I'm actually feeling. This is what she was feeling, and I'm bringing this into my life. So it could be through a fear I have of, leaving my family behind, or separating from people because I need them to be around me to help me, because I don't feel like I can do it on my own. So all those feelings that sometimes we don't understand can have a huge connection to this. It's so important to understand that. And, let's say like fears, or specific fears you have, or maybe unknown fears, fear of moving forward, or fear of the unpredictable. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm scared. And you're always feeling scared. You're feeling kind of like unconfident, like I don't have the confidence to move forward and to make the changes I need in my life, and I'm holding myself back from different things like work or my routines, or I'm living in lack. And those become our reality, but we're not living our own life. We're living through that experience that our mom had, and the baby had, obviously, the fetus had. And this is why cellular memory is so important. It's something that we can cleanse out. It's something we can clear out, and we are holding on to things that are ours. So it's so empowering to realize that we have that capability to let that go. So I would super, super encourage everybody, if you can and you feel called to, look into your delivery and birth story with your family. Ask questions like, was it long? Was there a danger of death? Was it this very calm and Zen experience that brought so much love into the room when you came? Was it an induction? Was there a threat of a C-section because of something that happened? All those things. And even the environment around the delivery, like what was going on around you? Was it super stressful? Was it in a place that was very Zen and you were being taken care of and you had great energy around you and people around you? So those are all great questions to ask. And this makes me think back also to when I was doing Manifested. So it was Lacey Phillips. She does this manifesting kind of program, and one is reparenting. So it's one of the different programs she has within that, and one is reparenting. So you have to ask all these questions. I remember it was like this huge sheet of like what was your mom feeling when she got pregnant? Was she scared? What was her relationship with your dad like when they got pregnant? Were they expecting you? Was that something that was she fearing anything coming through the pregnancy or even with birth? A lot of people are scared of the whole birth process, and that can also give you fears in the future, right? Of your own fears that you think are yours, but they're not. So yeah, I think if we can really just look at that, it's really, really empowering for our own growth and understanding. And this year is a lot about holding our own ground, doing things for ourselves and living our own lives, right? And I've felt this since last year, since before 2020, this idea of 2021 being a year of making these huge changes, even though things outside with whatever's going on in the world seems so scary and there's so much that's holding us back from doing physical things. It doesn't matter. The masters and guides want you all to know that this is the year for change. So do not let that hold you back from making the changes and believing in yourself and that you are capable of doing things, because it is a year of empowerment and change. So that's what 2021 is. And that is what it's all about. So in order to do that, if we know that something's holding us back, let's say this fear of, letting this one belief go, because if I let this go, that means my whole life's going to change. Sometimes even that, like, I'm scared of letting this go because that means everything around me is going to crumble and I'm going to have to start all over again. Or, I'm scared of leaving my job. I'm scared of talking to this person or communicating. We need to look at all that and let go of those fears. So this is also why I want to do this episode, because I think this could be an interesting element for you all to consider for your healing and for your progress. So yeah, it's interesting to think, even maybe loneliness and fear, they're saying, like, where does that come from? Do we really understand it? A lot of times, and I get many readings of people like saying, I have this fear and I don't know where it comes from. I have these thoughts. I don't know why I have them. Sometimes it could be from your childhood, but I would sometimes say it could go even further back. And this is something I'm going to start maybe incorporating into my readings, of asking that, like, is there anything from the moment you were conceived that can connect to this fear or this thing you're going through? And I feel like that's where most things start. It's that day you come in, that second you come in, and whatever was experienced in that kind of environment and the emotions, right? And when we don't process emotions, we're not going to heal something. And I think a lot of times when we're going about life and living things in a way where we don't understand why they're coming up, we just know we're fearful. We just know we can't do this or we can't do that, or we feel like we're not enough. That's all unprocessed emotions that might not be ours. Of course, they might not be ours, but other times if they are, we need to be able to look at them to heal them. And that's scary. I think a lot of us, and I see that many times of, and I've been through that too. So I completely understand it, of that idea that if I actually start to unpack this, it's going to get ugly. It's this shadow that has been lurking around for years and years and years. And if I look at this, like, what's going to happen? But what's going to happen if you don't? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't, you're just going to stay at that same place that you are. And this is what 2021's about. We need to be able to look at these things, to let them go. If we can't process these emotions and things from the past, we're not going to be able to feel this weight lifted off our shoulders and say, okay, I'm starting to live my life. I'm not being dictated by what happened in my birth or my birth story. I'm not being dictated by what happened in my childhood, or the way my mom treated me or my dad treated me, or how I was abandoned, or I have this trauma. Like, we can let that all go and we can take our power back. And that's what we need to focus on. Like, really think about what's holding you back. Are you procrastinating? Are you feeling distracted? Are you fearful? Are you feeling like you always need security in your life? Like, what are those? You have to really kind of just sit with yourself and ask yourself that. I see a lot of times people, the fear, right? The ego holding them back and not allowing them to kind of grab the steering wheel and dictate their own decisions and do their own things because of things that they've experienced, be it the birth, the childhood, or something that's happened in between. What is your capacity to deal with the situations? Do you get like any situation, right? Like making a change or starting a business or leaving your job and doing something you've been dreaming about for years? Do you get stuck in fear? Or do you enjoy the challenge and say, bring it on, right? That's all stuff to think about. Think about where you are right now. And I can guarantee that if you look back, there's something back there that's holding you back. And the Akashic Records really have given me this message time and time again in the last 2 or 3 months of empowerment. The only way we can empower ourselves is by shedding what no longer serves us and what's not ours. Because a lot of times we're holding on to other people's baggage. And that's not what this year is about, right? This year is about the collective and raising the vibration. But this can only happen when we have done our own work. If we're stuck in fear, in feeling not enough, and not living our own lives, how can we vibrate higher and be of service to that collective? It's going to be really, really hard. So we have to think in those terms and really understand that something could be holding us back. And we might know what that is, but we just don't know how to deal with it. So this idea of thinking, wow, it could have been something from when I was born. Holy moly, how? It has such a huge impact. And this is something I wanted to talk about because I feel like a lot of us don't think about that. We think about our childhood and what we experienced and how our mom treated us or how we, things that happened when we were little and how something could be traumatic and that in turn today affects our relationships, the way we communicate, the way we experience life and how the decisions you make and how you hold yourself back, all that stuff, right? We have to also think this year is, like I was saying, year of empowerment and vibrating higher in the collective and all that. But it's also a year due to this collective, right? This raising the vibration for the human collective and the light worker collective. It's all about relationships to ourselves and relationships with others. And, loving relationships, loving ourselves or others won't be to its full potential if we're not shedding all of this fear, if we're not shedding all of this stuff holding us back, and that's where we find ourselves falling into codependency, not wanting to be alone, fear of being alone, calling in difficult situations with relationships. And we've all seen that before. We all have some kind of story. If it's not ourselves, it's someone we know. And I don't know, I just have this message from the Akashic Records, obviously, of don't let that hold you back. Look at yourself, realize your patterns, start to put things together. And that's why I love the Akashic Records so much. And this is why it's been a tool that's helped me so much. It's I can put things together. I can start to connect the dots. I can understand why these patterns are repeating over and over and over again. And when I can understand that, I can just let it go. I can just, somehow it doesn't bother me anymore, or somehow I just understand it so that it's oh, it's not mine. Okay, cool. I can release this. Sometimes there needs to be a little bit more work with it. That makes sense, right? But not all the time. I think it's really interesting to think about this layer of healing, this one aspect of healing, and how, if we're fortunate enough to still have our mom and our dad close by, why not ask them, what were you feeling, Mom, during the pregnancy and delivery? What was going on? The baby perceives everything. The fetus perceives everything. They absorb everything. It's all in the cellular memory. What happened in the delivery? Were you rushed into the hospital? Did you feel like you were supported by people around you? Was Dad there? Were you able to see Dad? Were you being taken care of? Did you have nurses there that were checking in on you? Did you feel like you had people around you to, that were supporting your decisions and what you were doing? Was it a home birth? Depending on where you live and what time it was. Did you have contact with your mom when you were born? Like, for example, in my case, my mom had 41 hours of labor with me, which is pretty insane. And I didn't want to come out. They literally had to pull me out. And I guess that says a lot about me and why I have trouble making decisions and being really certain about things. It's like, I was forced to do things. I don't like feeling forced, but I like comfort. I like security. And that kind of shows that in that process, right? So like when you were born, did you have that contact? Like in my case, I didn't. I was taken away. My mom's like, is she okay? Is she alive? Where is she? No one could find me. So my dad and my grandfather were looking for me. I didn't have that skin to skin contact. I was taken away. So that has a huge impact on the baby and the mom, So these are all interesting questions to contemplate. Maybe you are a mom. Maybe you have gone through this, and you can look at these questions and think about how your son or daughter are experiencing life and how maybe you can connect the dots for them and understand them and be able to support them better. I think that's an interesting thing to think about too. Because I think, as time goes by, and I know a lot of you listeners probably are on a more conscious path of connecting to your healing and your story and what's going on and being able to help yourself, but, the people around you as well. And I think more and more this idea of being more conscious and connected parents, being able to be there emotionally for our kids and be there in the way that they need us and not the way that we feel like we need to be there. So I think that's a lot of being present. And I think if we can understand this aspect of how we brought them into this life, how great would that be for you to understand that and maybe why they're having certain issues or why they're having certain patterns come back time and time again. And you can maybe support them through that because you understand it. How amazing is that? Like, that just blows my mind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say too much more. I just wanted to kind of bring this idea forward to you guys. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's something that we can all look at. We've all been born. We're all here, I hope. And I think we all have a story, and our story affects our experience here. And this isn't to say like, don't let this get you down. Don't allow this to take over your life. But at the same time, it could be so liberating to understand it so that you can say, okay, I get you. I understand where this is coming from, but this isn't me. This isn't what I want to experience. And this fear I have of this and this thing, that makes sense now, but there is nothing to fear. I can do this thing I want to do, So I think empower yourselves, get the information, and just understand yourselves and your experience and why you're feeling certain things more. So yeah, I think with that, I'm just going to wrap up the episode. If you guys have any questions, for sure, I'm sure we're going to go into this topic again with Lou. I'd love to see what comes through for her. But I want to just say that as well, we're still doing dual and individual readings on Zoom. So we do virtual readings. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll leave all that information on the show notes. So reach out, and we're here to help. And as well, like as always, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we also have our courses. So if you guys are interested in learning to open your own Akashic records, definitely check us out. I'll put those links below as well. And we're definitely coming out with level 2. So this year will be when we come out with level 2, which is opening other people's Akashic records. We're in the process of channeling all that information. It takes time, and we want to make it the best that it can be. So it's taking a little longer than we've anticipated, but we just want to make sure that whatever we bring forward to you guys, it's quality and it's our own material, and it's stuff that our own masters and guides are kind of guiding us in that direction. So definitely, and remember that to do level 2, you need to do level 1. So make sure that if you're definitely interested in becoming an Akashic Records reader, that you go through that process, because it's only going to help you become a stronger reader. And like anything, we need to do our own healing before we can heal others. It's just the way it works, right? It's not about being perfect, but at least having started that process. So yeah, we'll come back next week with a new episode. I'm not sure if Lou's going to do a solo episode or not, but just tune in. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you guys are enjoying the podcast, if you've been listening and you really resonate with everything we're saying, it would be amazing if you can go on to the iTunes or Apple podcast app and rate us. That could really help support the podcast and make sure that this gets to more ears and to more people, and to help support more of the spiritual growth that we're hoping for in this world. And we're here for you guys. Thank you all for your support, and we'll see you guys next week with a new episode. Bye, everybody.